We'll begin with MS Now contributor Inzamam Rashid in Dubai. So, Inzamam, welcome. Is it clear who's in control of the Strait of Hormuz right now? And how are this weekend strikes throwing peace talks into question?
Well, Alex, the current threat level on the Strait of Hormuz sits at substantial, and that isn't down to just the Iranian attacks on a couple of vessels in the waterway, but also the U.S. retaliation as a result. Many of the strikes actually on the south coast of Iran near to the Strait of Hormuz. And so that's why the threat level currently remains very high in that waterway. But look, Iran has had de facto control over the Strait of Hormuz over the last 4 months, ever since day one of this conflict. And we're in a situation now where effectively they can not only carry out military attacks towards vessels in the waterway if they feel that they are not complying with Iranian rule as they try and bypass the water, but also because they can come out and threaten, just using words, to take over the Strait of Hormuz, to shut down that waterway once again. And effectively that brings down confidence within shipping companies and insurers as well. The Strait of Hormuz has effectively turned into an Iranian deterrence weapon, even stronger probably than having a nuclear weapon, which is, of course, the whole reason that we went into this conflict in the first place. And then on the other hand, you've got the US naval blockade, which is still pretty much in place because the US has got a lot of Navy assets in the region, and they are still trying to control shipping within the Strait of Hormuz. But Alex, when it comes to peace talks, this is the big question. Does this fighting that we've seen between the US and Iran hamper the peace talks? It's my understanding that the four sides, including Qatar and Pakistan as mediators, are still very much trying to have an overall consensus to get this memorandum of understanding and the points in it discussed and a lot of the conclusions over the line. Now, the technical discussions have still been ongoing in the background, that all the sides are still in Switzerland and are still having discussions. And I think that's an important note because it gives us a sense that all four sides do still want to get a deal over the line. But clearly this fighting will have a huge knock-on effect because it's impossible to see all four sides in the room knowing full well that attacks are still being carried out. There is also the point of the Gulf states, Alex, because overnight, yet again, we see Iran targeting not only Bahrain as they did the other night, but Kuwait as well. And it's caused infrastructure damage in those countries too. So the Gulf states will be hugely concerned once again this evening in case there are any further Iranian retaliations into the country. And I think that's a concern for the Gulf across the board because they don't have a direct control of the negotiations. They're concerned about Iran's drone and missile capabilities as well. So right now we're in a situation where the Strait of Hormuz very much remaining in some form of Iranian control, but clearly the talks are continuing, but they will be impacted by this fighting, no doubt.
I'm going to pick up on that last comment in just a moment right now. Appreciate you, though, Inzamam Rashid, for that. We are joined by MS Now senior national security reporter David Rhodes. So let's get into this, David, because following these latest strikes, Donald Trump once again threatened the U.S. may be forced to militarily complete the job and Iran may no longer exist. Is that really where this is all heading? Or is Trump making another of his many threats that he won't ultimately act on? And to the point that Inzamam was making, can the technical experts make some progress on talks in the background while all these hostilities simmer? I'm curious how these talks play out. When you've got fighting back and forth, both sides, are they immune to the knowledge of that? Do they just stay the course in these talks?
I think they stay the course, but they get nowhere near reaching a final agreement. And all of these are sort of very bad signs. I mean, essentially what Iran is saying is we are in control of the Strait of Hormuz, as Inzamam mentioned, and we are going to remain in control of the Strait of Hormuz. And they fired on these ships because they were using a southern route through the strait closer to the coast of Oman. And essentially the Iranians said, no, you can't do that. You have to get our approval. And this is part of an unprecedented new power Iran is exerting and wants to have, that it could close the strait, as Inzamam said, and also charge fees to ships which would give it a huge amount of money to rebuild its weaponry. And so it's critical. The Foreign Minister Iranchi, just spoke in a press conference in Baghdad. He was meeting with Iraqi officials, and he said Iran controls the strait, period, full stop. Like, there was no talk of agreeing to this complete reopening that President Trump has asked for. So all of this is a major setback. And look, what we need to watch is how many ships are getting out of the strait, because if traffic slows down, you'll have gas prices going up again.